So branding is more than just a logo. I would argue branding is actually a feeling. So when I say the word fast food, which restaurant do you think of? A lot of people will say McDonald's. When I think coffee, what do you think of? A lot of people will say Starbucks. That is the pinnacle of branding. You want to associate your brand, your name, with an object. So that when people say, oh, a fancy car, we think of Ferrari or Lamborghini. That is the pinnacle of branding. So branding leads to a feeling, and it's so much more than just a logo, the color, and so on and so forth. These are all the different elements of a brand, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And we will also teach you how to actually create your own brand using some amazing tools. I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, like I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not an artist. Like I don't know how to create a logo. Don't worry, you don't need to do any of that. With the tools that we have online these days, it's absolutely phenomenal and it's a breeze. And a lot of people buy because of a brand. Like people are very emotional creatures. I mean, a really good example of this is actually Elon Musk, which is one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. And at Tesla, he has another company called the Boring Company. And they sell a bunch of like merchandise and like really cool like toys and stuff. So he generated millions of dollars by selling like a tequila bottle, really cool tequila bottle. People are like, yeah, I'll buy that. He generated millions of dollars by selling this like flamethrower. Yeah, I'll buy that. So brand is such an emotional thing that people attach to, so that when you launch anything, let's say if you have a really good brand and you can launch anything, people will actually still buy those products. There are different components of a brand, and again, we'll teach you how to create these for your personal FBA product. So under brand identity, there's the name, the logo, the tagline, the color, typography, imagery, and brand guidelines. You also want to give your brand a personality. What does this stand for? So a really good example of this is the Dollar Shave Club. So, you know, the razor game is very serious. Like Gillette is, you know, has a big market share in that. All their packaging is like, oh, here's the latest, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's the latest features, benefits, the blade is this thin. Whereas for Dollar Shave Club, they wanted to actually bring a really humorous approach to this. They wanted to make a joke out of this. I'll actually attach a very funny ad of Dollar Shave Club down below so you can watch that. It's absolutely hilarious. But you want to give your brand a personality. A brand is almost like a living creature. It's a living human being. What kind of people do you want to attract? Who is your target market? So you want to give your brand a personality. And some of that includes like personality traits. You also want to have like a tone. So the tone of brand's communication. You want to have values. What does your brand stand for? For example, Nike, they stand for, you know, every single time you watch a Nike commercial, they don't talk about the shoes. They don't talk about their gear. They talk about the values of this persona. Like you can achieve anything you want. You can do anything you want. So if you take a look at some of their commercials, it's absolutely amazing. But Adam, I know you're going to talk a little bit more about Nike later. We're not trying to create the next Nike, by the way. I'm just giving you some examples. And last, you also want to have a brand story. What is the story of your brand? How was your brand created? Because a lot of these stories now resonate with whoever's watching, and they're bought into the story, not so much as your product, but they're now bought into the story. And whatever you launch to them, whatever you sell to them, they're willing to buy it just because they're so emotionally connected to the story itself. Brand positioning is another really important part of building a brand. So earlier we had talked about the derma roller, we had talked about dude wipes, and another example I can give you right now is Volvo. So Volvo is known for safety. Whenever you see a Volvo commercial, they're not talking about the horsepower. They're not talking about anything else. They're serving kind of the parents, right, who have kids. So a lot of times you'll actually see on their ads like a Volvo driving to the school, picking up their kids, so it's a family in the back. All those imagery, all those videos, all those words actually describe, hey, whoever values safety, Volvo is the right car for you. Whereas if you take a look at like Lamborghini or Ferrari, they don't show like a family go into a Ferrari, right? They show like probably a single guy, like a bachelor looking guy driving around the city, getting all the attention. So brand positioning is super important. You need to know who your customer is. You need to know who you want to serve. It's a very crucial aspect of brand as well.
Yeah, Tom, and I think the other thing that's really important here is to think about brand in the context of selling your product on Amazon. So again, going back to the customer experience, people are typing in keywords, they're going to see actual ads at the top, they're going to see organic listings, and you're going to want to look at the brands for the particular product segment that you're going after and understanding what the mix is. You're going to have some known brands that probably sell on other channels other than Amazon, and they're likely going to be a lot more expensive, right? But people may know who they are. But a lot of what you're going to see in organic results is really generic odd, frankly, brands that aren't really brands at all. They've got like a really weird name. The photography is kind of simple. There's not really a whole lot in the voice of the bullets. They're just kind of listing the features of the product. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. This isn't Nike with Super Bowl commercials and all that. We use that as a context for how they drive emotion. But you can make some subtle changes in the name you select, in the images you use, and in the voice of the bullets that really have a feeling attached to it. And it's a feeling that's different than what else is on the organic results of Amazon. So we're trying to tap into that human psychology. We're trying to tap into that microprocessor and stand out in the context of who you're competing against on Amazon.
So there's a company called Cuts. They sell white t-shirts, and they were able to sell hundreds of millions of them. And this is a brand new company. This is not something that's been started in like the 1900s, whatever. And to me, I thought it was really fascinating because I think white t-shirts is probably the most competitive product out of all products. You can walk into any stores, Walmart, Target, clothing stores, any stores, you can find yourself a white t-shirt. So the question I had was, how was this brand able to succeed in such a competitive market? And it all comes down to one thing, which is the customer avatar. So you see, there's different people that wear white t-shirts, and different people wear white t-shirts for different reasons. A painter could be wearing a white t-shirt while they paint so that they don't get, something else dirty. But also, someone who goes to the gym can also wear a white t-shirt because it looks nice. So there's different use cases, and there's different customer avatars. Now, Steve, which is the founder of Cuts, he identified an avatar that has not been served properly. And that avatar is someone who goes to a 9-to-5 job. They don't want to dress up wearing like a collar. They don't want to wear like a tie, and they just want to wear a jacket. But underneath the jacket, they want to wear like a white tee. So after work, they can go to a bar, they can take off the jacket, and now they're just wearing white tee with jeans. So they look a lot more casual. So he identified the segment of a market, which is what I just described, and he decided to create a white t-shirt for them. And that's how he was able to build up such a big brand. And that's what we talked about earlier, which was niching down. Who is your customer? You can't serve everybody. You can't boil an ocean. So make sure you serve one specific target market, and from that, you are able to build a very amazing business. So we're going to teach you a little bit about customer research, who you should be servicing, and how you can find your niche. So the first thing there's to do about customer research and customer avatar is you need to know their demographics. In this case, Steve was servicing someone from mid-20s to mid-40s, men, because it's a male clothing brand, and that person has a 9-to-5 job that probably makes anywhere between 60 all the way up to $150,000 a year. And they like to work, they like to have a nice bag, and all these different things. So you're painting kind of a picture of who you're servicing. A lot of brands also give this person a name just to make that person a little bit more real, right? So demographics, it is important to know your customer's age, gender, income, education level, location, and other relevant demographics. And this information will help you to tailor your marketing efforts to meet their specific needs. Again, the needs of someone who's going to work wearing a white t-shirt is going to be very different than the needs of someone who's actually painting. Number 2 is psychographics. Understanding your customer's personality, values, interests, and lifestyle is crucial in creating a message that resonates with them. The messaging that you're going to be creating for your brand is going to be very different for Steve's target market versus a painter. A painter could be like, hey, wear this white t-shirt so that you don't get your clothing dirty, right? For Steve, it's the complete opposite. Wear this white t-shirt that is so comfortable when you're working, and you can look stylish after work at a bar, something like that, right? So knowing what they enjoy and what their priorities are and what they value can actually help you create marketing messages that are relatable and authentic. Number 3 is pain points. Understanding your customers' pain points is so important because in business, all we're here to do is solving a pain point. What we're here to do as entrepreneurs is we're solving a need. The greater the pain point, the more you will get paid. So make sure when you launch your product, there is a pain point, right? There's a pain point for everything. So in human being, there's only 2 things that lead us, right? There's avoidance of pain and pleasure. So we want more pleasure, we want less pain. So if you can figure out what their pain points are, then you'll have a great brand. So understanding your customer's pain point, challenges, and frustrations can help you to tailor your marketing efforts to address their needs. Knowing what the problems they face and what they're looking for in a product or service can help you to create a solution that meet their needs. Number 4 is buying habits. Understanding your customers' buying habits, such as where they shop, how often do they buy, what influences their buying decisions, can help you to create a marketing effort that targets them more effectively. Now, the common thread of all this is that why do we want to create a brand? We want to create a brand because later, when we're marketing our product, we can stand out among the competition. We can stand out among everybody else on Amazon. And that's ultimately what drives people to buy your product. It's for you to have that purple cow effect, for you to actually play in your own blue ocean. Communication preferences. Knowing your customers prefer to communicate, such as email, social media, phone, can tailor your marketing efforts to reach out to them where they are most receptive. For example, if you're targeting people in their 70s or 80s, you're probably not, going on TikTok and making videos for them. They probably don't use TikTok that much. But there are marketing channels that they're a lot more receptive to. For example, a quick story I can share with you is back in the days where I was selling advertising at Yellow Pages, we would hit up certain markets, for example, like Red Deer, Alberta, or like Grand Forks, all these small cities that I don't expect any of you to know. But they don't want to be online. They didn't want to be on yp.ca. What they wanted to be was actually in the phone book. Why? People in these areas actually still use the phone book to find businesses. I was shocked, but ultimately it's not my decision to persuade them. Who am I? Like, they live in the area, they know what they like. So I'm like, all right, you can put your ad in the phone book. Whereas other cities like the metropolitans, they don't want to be in the phone book. They want to be online because people who live here are a little bit, more tech savvy. So it's a good example to understand the communication preferences. And last is influences. Understanding the people or things that influence your customer's decision-making process can help you to identify key opportunities to reach and connect with them. This is so critical, right? Now, I'm sure you've heard of the term influencer marketing. So if you know who influences your customers, you can down the road, we'll teach you all this, like influencer marketing and stuff, but you can potentially partner up with the influencers in your space. And then these influencers are able to help their customers, which is your customer avatar, to actually end up buying your product and your brand.
All right, so I realize this concept might seem a little esoteric for you. So what we've actually done is created a really simple one-page template to build out your customer avatar. I'm going to go through this really quickly, and I'm actually going to share a story about a brand that I'm actually building right now called Rideo, which is basically a kids bike brand. So obviously when you think about a kid's bike brand, kids aren't purchasing the bikes, it's their parents. And so we had to be really thoughtful about who's actually buying this. Well, obviously the end user is a kid, but who's actually purchasing it? What are the decisions that are going to influence that purchase decision? And so we'll use some of the categories here in this template, and I'll just kind of walk you through that. But where we landed is we're actually selling to what we're calling a Lululemon mom. So this is somebody that is in their early to mid-late 30s. It's somebody that is probably a working mom that has a lot of pressures about how do I become a parent and how do I do this the right way, but they've also got influences of ego, right? They shop at Target, they shop at Lululemon. When they go to the park, there's a bunch of other Lululemon moms that they actually want to have cool things for their kids. And so the first category is just the goals and values, right? And so if you think about a Lululemon mom, they want to have a successful career, they want to have a successful marriage, and ultimately they want to raise their kids in the right way, which is pretty difficult in a modern environment where you've got a lot of iPads and things like that. So we really tapped into how they could get their kids off of iPads, how they could get them outside and fulfill the challenges that they have as a new parent for how do I raise my kid like I was kind of raised, and getting them outside on a bike. The second is the sources of info. Tom talked about this a little bit, but where are they actually finding their information? They're finding about it from other moms. They're probably following mommy influencers on Instagram. They're probably in Facebook groups around parenting. They're on Reddit communities around parenting. So tapping into those places where they hang out tells us a lot about the language that they use. And when we understand the language and the psychology, we can then sculpt how we actually position our own language when we're creating things like Amazon listings.
Yeah, it's so important how you speak to someone, right? Like, you will not resonate with a brand if they don't speak to you like your friends speak to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, if you want to do something, if you're a fun person and then some brand is like, oh, like really old and boring, like you're not gonna buy that brand. But if that brand starts speaking to you as if like they're your friend and start using the same languages as you, you are so much more likely to even connect with that brand that leads to a purchase at the end.
Yeah. The next category is challenges and pain points. And the best way to think about this is, what is the voice in the head of your ideal customer when they're making a purchase? So in the case of Rideo, again, you've got a mom that's looking at, how do I get my kids outside? They care a lot about safety. You're putting a 1 to 3 year old kid on a bike. Better be a damn safe product. So they've got to feel that safety from that. And they also want to feed their ego. Again, they want to stroll up to the park with the newest, coolest thing that the other moms are going to think are cool. They're going to want to post a story of their kid riding a bike, and that's going to fulfill their ego. So you want to really think about, what is that voice in the head of your customer, and making sure you document that in the pain point section. And then finally, you want to think about like the objections that people will have. Again, talking about safety. I'm not putting my kid on a bike if the brand name's really weird, or if it feels like it's like from China and the photos are odd. I want to see a kid on a bike like my kid. I want to see photography like I'm used to seeing on Instagram. I want to have a brand name that engenders trust, that I feel like it's a high quality product. So use this template. It sounds a little wonky, but this stuff is really, really powerful in getting into the mind of your customer, how you can sell to them, and how you can find them. And I would also just say, this concept of a customer avatar, that doesn't mean that people other than your customer avatar are going to purchase your product. I'm sure there's dads that are going to buy our product. I'm sure there's grandparents that are going to buy our kid's bike. But the point is that you want to hone in on a very specific niche customer avatar that you can target, and that's going to influence everything you do, from the voice, the photography, how you even build your product, and the name. And then there's going to be other tertiary markets and customers that will ultimately buy your product too, but it's important to have that focus on a singular customer avatar.
Yeah, and I would go to say, like, a really good example of this for that bike, it could be, let's say, 70% of people that are buying this bike are going to be moms. But like maybe 20% are going to be dads and 10% are going to be the grandparents. Yeah. So if 70% of the people are the moms, who do you think you should speak to? Obviously the moms, right? And then there is that trickle effect of the dads or whatever. But yeah, so that's really interesting. And I would say a good way, and now a lot of people might be watching this video, they're like, well, like, how do I find this information, right? Go speak to them.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I'm sorry, but like, that's what you want to do. You want to go speak to customers. I think there's one thing in the Amazon space that it's like, we work off a laptop and there's like digital screen, everything's digital. We don't see anybody, but we're really selling products to real people. Like when you buy a product on Amazon, you are a real person. So we're really selling real products to real people. So why not talk to real people, right? Go talk to real people. Again, if you want to launch a dog product, go to the dog park. If let's say, you want to launch a pre-workout like supplement, go talk to some gym bros, understand what their pain points are. Hey, like, what don't you like about your current supplement? Oh, they make me jittery. Boom, right away. Okay. Yeah. When I create my product, make sure there's no jitters, right? So really understanding your customer's pain point. If you don't want to speak to someone, first, go speak to them. Second, there are a lot of great communities online. So Reddit is amazing community. I think we talked about that already, but go on Reddit, type in like dogs, and you can just read everything about dog owners, golf, like all the golfers. So I highly recommend for you to find out where your customers are, both offline and online, and then just put yourself in there. Just understand like what they talk about, what their pain points are. And this is why, going back to chapter 1, right? This is why it's so important for you to launch something that you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about like golf, you're not passionate about like cats or whatever, yeah, like, okay, you're going to do this for the money, great. But as your brand grows, or even at the beginning, if you have no like internal drive, if you don't have that internal passion, you're just going to get bored. And a lot of people give up when they get bored, right? They're like, oh, like this is not fun for me. But if it's something that's really fun for you, if you're a cat lover and all day you get to talk to cat people, that's like the best job in the world and you get paid. So yeah, so absolutely, like, launch something that you at least have some interest in, and that will help you along this journey during the ups and the downs. Naming. Well, you got to give your brand a name, and that's something you're going to create, right? Don't spend too much time on this. And I'll give you an example. The dumbest name I've ever heard in my entire life, which also happens to be one of my favorite clothing brands. I'm wearing them right now. Lululemon. Like,
it's dumb.
It's dumb. It's a stupid name. Like, Lululemon. It's such a stupid name. By the way, Chip Wilson, which is the founder of Lululemon, he's in Vancouver, and he wrote why he used Lululemon as a brand. You guys can look that up. But I just think it's a stupid name. It doesn't sound good, right? So the point I'm trying to make is your brand name, don't spend too much time on this. Ultimately, we give our brand name the meaning, not the other way around, right? So there are a few different ways for you to come up with a brand name. Now, there's 4 different types of categories of brand names. The first one is descriptive. So it's like literally describing what this is. So for example, FBA masterclass. Very descriptive word. It's a masterclass teaching you how to do Amazon FBA. There's healthy snacks. There is squeaky clean. These are you don't even need to know what they sell. You already know what they sell based on the name, right? The second one is unique. Lululemon is very unique. It's a brand new word that they came up with. The third one is a metaphor or analogy. So for example, Dropbox, right? That's a metaphor or analogy. And the last one is an acronym. So IBM, which is a computer company. IBM is a great acronym as well. So I want to share my story with you about how I came up with Sadara, which is my business, and then Adam can tell you his story of how he came up with his. So how I came up with Sadara is I wanted to be a descriptive word. I wanted to have something like, I wanted to have the word skincare in the company because I want people to know what we do right away. But I also wanted the first word to start with an S. So I started brainstorming like simple skincare. Now taken like sexy skincare. No, that's not good. So what other S words can I put in front of skincare? And I couldn't think of any. And the week before this exercise, I was actually in Las Vegas and I stayed at the hotel Vedora. So I was like, that's a really unique name. In this case, that would be a unique name. So what if I replace the V with the S? Sadara Skincare. So I went online, I looked it up. And guys, make sure we're going to talk about what are some of the things that you need to check for, such as like trademark and social media stuff. But I went online, I checked, Instagram, Sadara Skincare taken. Nope, great. I went on GoDaddy, the website. Is Sadara Skincare taken? No, great. I went on all these different websites. No, they're not taken. Awesome. So I picked Sadara Skincare.
Yeah, so example of a new brand I'm building, Ridio. It's a kids bike brand, and we're going to be focused around products, bikes, and accessories for kids. And so a couple of things that I wanted to have, I wanted it to be clear that it is a bike brand, and so there needed to be a descriptive element to it. And despite the fact that we're starting with a bike for toddlers, I know there's going to be helmets, there's going to be bikes for older kids and other things down the line. So I also didn't want it to be too specific to the initial product. And I see people make this example or this mistake. Like if you had Sadara Derma Roller was the name of the company, it kind of pins you down to a specific product category that you may want to build. So for me, it's about making it instantly recognizable to your customer avatar on what it is that you're actually selling from a niche standpoint. But not making it so specific that you don't have the ability to build it out later. And you talked about it too. You want to make sure that the trademark is available and some other things. But I wouldn't even get too wrapped around even the URL. Like ours is going to be Get Ridio because Ridio would have cost us $20,000 to get. So again, I think not overthinking this. We're going to talk about some tools and some strategies to be able to come up and brainstorm ideas. But the point is that you make the brand, right? You take the name and you make it what you want it to be. And I think a lot of people just get a little bit too wrapped around the axle, and it's actually a simpler exercise than you may think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So let's say if your company is Sadara Skincare and then you go online, sadaraskincare.com is taken. Oh, that's too bad. Doesn't mean that you can't do that company, right? You can still use the name. But in this case, it's most likely going to be trademarked, so you probably don't want to use it. If you go online and like the social media handle is taken, well, you can just put something in front of it or after it to make it a little bit more unique. Some of the ways for you to come up with your own brand names will be using a tool called NameLix. It will give you tons of brand names. You can also go to relatedwords.org. You can go to nameforbrands.com. And last one, you can use ChatGPT. You can enter in the prompt, give me 10 brand names that make products servicing, customer avatar, and it will give you 10 different names as well. But the most important part of this process is not the social media, it's not the website, it's the trademark. You want to make sure that this name is not trademarked or it's even remotely close to something that's trademarked. I've seen cases where students will launch a brand and the name itself contains, for example, Sadara Skincare. Sadara Skincare itself is not trademarked, but the word Sadara it's trademarked. So trademarking, we're going to have a whole separate module on this. But just want to let you know that you can't just think of any names and be like, oh, that's going to be my brand name. You got to make sure it's not trademarked. For example, tomorrow you can't launch a brand called Apple. You can't launch a brand called Nike because they own the trademark already. So there are many different benefits of trademark other than just protecting your brand, which later on we'll discuss. But whatever you do, just make sure that the name itself is not trademarked. All right, time to create your logo after you have a brand name. Again, something that you really don't need to spend too much time on. Now, I know you're not a graphic designer, maybe you are, but most of us are not. I'm not a graphic designer. So how do you go ahead and create a logo if you're not a graphic designer? Okay, super simple. I mean, what's amazing right now with, in this day and age that we live in is the amount of tools online to help you to succeed with your business. So one of the best tools for logo creation is actually using this website called brandmark.io. For as low as $60, you can get back so many logos if you give it the right prompt, and it's absolutely amazing. They can do things like logo creation. They can also do brand style guide. They can do business cards design, Facebook ad covers, just for $65. So I highly recommend for you to check out brandmark.io. The only thing that you need to make sure that your logo isn't infringing on is simply the trademark. Again, we'll teach you a little bit more about the trademarks down below that goes with your slogan, your logo, your name, and brand name and everything. So go ahead, go to brandmark.io and get your logo there.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about packaging, and this is going to be a little more conceptual. We actually have a video in the sourcing section that gets into the technical details of this a little bit. I would first just start out by saying that no one's buying your product on Amazon because of the package. We talk about some things in the listing optimization where we can actually show the package on the listing image. You can even create unboxing videos that may help convert the product. But this is something that people aren't going to really experience until after they've purchased your product. So it's not really going to help you convert sales. So you don't want to spend a ton of time or money on this specifically. But there's also some things you need to think about in terms of how do you want to visually represent your product on packaging. There's some more technical details and regulatory details, whether you put it in a plastic bag, cardboard, how you want it to protect it. But the core thing is you can take your very basic core elements of your branding and fuse those into the packaging, whether it's colors, logos, things like that, that really engender an experience that ties to the brand that you're trying to build with your products.
Yeah, so I would say, again, exactly what you said, right? So don't spend too much time, don't spend too much money. No one's buying your product because of your packaging. But having said that, there's 3 different types of packaging, I would say. The first one's like just a plastic bag. Now with the plastic bag, you need a suffocation warning label. You can pick that on Amazon. We'll teach you how to do that. There's like a box, which is like, I would say the most standard type of packaging. And then there's like a container, for example. And then with regards to the design, this is where you want to use kind of the same brand guidelines that you got from earlier by using brandmark.io and using the same colors, putting your name, putting your logo, and all that type of stuff. Your Amazon packaging must include your country of origin. So if your product is made in China, it must include the word made in China, made in Canada, made in Canada, made in USA, made in USA. It also must include Amazon's barcode, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And one of the things that's most helpful for me to come up with my own packaging is actually by looking at competitors. Yeah. So if you are launching a skincare company, like what I did with Sadara Skincare was I didn't know what to put on there, right? All I did was I went to Sephora, I went to all these different makeup companies or whatever, and I just looked at what, like, generally speaking, what they put. So I saw that they put their ingredients. I saw that they put their instructions. I saw that they put their logo, their name, and then maybe even your brand story. So take a look at what your competitors are doing. Go to the big box retailers, go to buy something on Amazon and take a look at that. I would say that's super, super critical. Now, the entire experience of creating a packaging works like this. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find a packaging supplier, someone who can actually print the packaging. So the packaging supplier could actually be your factory. A lot of factories produce this packaging. Or if you're not happy with the quality of the packaging, you can actually go to a resource section and find Jason, who's actually a packaging supplier. All they do is provide packaging. So from there on, what they will do is they'll give you something called a die line. A die line is essentially just an outline of what your packaging looks like. Where are different creases, where are different fold lines. And then from there, all you need to do is give this die line to a graphic designer who can actually then put your logo within the frame, who can then put the instructions, who can put the brand story in certain sections. Once that is done, they send that die-line file, usually a PDF file, they send that back to the printer. Then the printer will actually print it and they'll give you a sample of what it looks like. From there, you can make changes. So rest assured, it's not like, oh, I gotta get it right the first time. You can do a couple prints and they should be able to help you with that. So again, a graphic designer is going to be involved in this process. We have tons of graphic designers in the course under a resource section. So make sure you go to the resource section and pick the right graphic designer to work with. Now, another really cool resource I want to share with you guys is something called MidJourney. So we'll post a separate video, probably in the next slides or whatever. But MidJourney is an AI tool that will actually allow you to create some really, really cool concepts, give you some really amazing creativity when it comes to packaging. So we're gonna have a separate video showing you how to actually use MidJourney. I just think it's one of the coolest tools out there at the moment. In terms of functionality, I think there's definitely, like what Adam said earlier, no one's gonna buy your packaging because of the packaging. I'm not sure if you guys bought Apple products before. Apple is obviously trying to go for a very high-end target market. And with Apple, I mean, every single time you buy anything from them, whether it's a phone, whether it's an AirTag, there's a element of the reveal. There's the voila. Yeah. And I love that. I absolutely love that. They are a big company. They can afford to do that. At the very beginning, you don't need to do that. But as your company grows, maybe this is something you can do to supplement your experience so your customers will actually keep reordering your product, whatever.
Yeah, and one thing I'd just say in closing, Tom, is you can do some things that don't cost a lot of money, but also attach the brand voice to the unboxing experience. I had a really cool experience about a year ago. I bought a product. It was just literally a cardboard box, very simple logo design. But when I opened it, on the inside, it basically just said something along the lines of, I've been waiting my whole life for you to open me.
Nice.
That cost no money. It was just a cool way for them to attach the voice of the brand to the packaging, and it didn't cost them any money to do it. So you might want to think about a couple things that you can bring that brand voice and story to your packaging that don't really cost a lot of money and that don't get to the Apple level, but have a unique experience when customers open the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Christina's company, Super Major, that's exactly what she has right now, whereas she comes in a box, right? She doesn't come in a box. The chocolate comes in a box. And then basically as you open it, there's the slogan, right? There's a slogan, there's the brand story. So you can definitely incorporate, that's a really good point. You can definitely incorporate that into your packaging as well.
Hi everybody, this is Todd. I'm one of the coaches for the FBA Masterclass. And today we're gonna be discussing some of the latest updates to Amazon Brand Registry and the dreaded Error 5665. So ominous. Let's dig into it. So if you don't know already, this is what a brand or store link would look like. So you have a typical listing. You've probably seen them 100 times. Right under the title, you can see that there's an extra little spot there with blue that says brand or store link. This is kind of what we'll use as our tool to understand if a particular competitor is brand registered or not. And today we're going to be discussing whether you should brand register and what are the latest kind of states on choices on how to brand register. So how it used to work, this is before about mid-2023, there were two different brand states, I'll call them, on Amazon. Option number one was that you could brand register, and that means that you had a registered trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The other option was to just list it as generic, which we'll call unregistered. And the common launch process that a lot of sellers, myself included, would use is that we would launch a brand as generic to kind of test the market and prove that we had product market fit. And once we'd confirmed that there was a fit and we had kind of a great product on hand, we would then register a trademark for the brand. And once that trademark was registered, it usually took about 48 hours, you could apply for Amazon Brand Registry. And sometimes you get a 5665 error and you'd need to spend a little time huffing and puffing with seller support to kind of resolve it. But this was a very common launch approach that people would use to kind of hedge the risk of investing in a trademark while making sure that the product was going to work. Now, there has been some updates, but first let's understand what 5665 is. Ultimately, it means that you've entered a brand name when you're creating a listing that is not yet registered or you have not been approved to sell. Now, this can be even a brand that you created, you have a registration for, you just need to be able to prove it to Amazon. So if you do some Googling on the topic of error 5665, I'll warn you right off the top that most of the info online has not been updated. That's because a lot of these changes have kind of been trickling in since mid 2023 or so. And The big change that we're seeing now, although it never seems to have been formally announced, is that Amazon is really no longer allowing listings to convert from generic to being brand registered. And this is a big deal because obviously in the process we just mentioned, where a lot of people were using this, they're getting frustrated when they're no longer able to step it up to brand registered. So what they'll say in this case is that you might need to create a brand new listing, and in that process, you would lose any of the earned reviews or sales history that you'd built up. Some people have had success with Fiverr to find people that have been able to work around it, but there's no guarantees. I'll also explain why this is happening. Amazon has kind of been having a battle on the brand front, trying to improve their brand protection, and they've been outsourcing a lot of the responsibilities of this to GS1, the nonprofit that makes and manages UPCs around the world, and the USPTO. So they're basically trying to offload a lot of the work on proving that these brands are real to other offices. And in so doing, they've kind of hardline set the rule that, hey, unless they registered the listing originally with the brand, we're not going to let them upgrade. So what's ultimately happened then is there's now 3 states of brand options on Amazon. And we're going to walk through what these are, how to get them, when to use them. And ultimately what it means though is that the impact to you is that you now need to make some decisions in advance on what your plans are. These 3 states then: brand registered, unregistered brand, which is a new status, and generic. Now let's walk through them one by one. So the first option is brand registered. You've probably heard of this before. This is a little bit of what it would look like. So here you can see right under the title, it says visit the Zule Kitchen store. That is a clear sign that not only are they brand registered, they actually have their brand store set up, which is a very useful tool as well. You might sometimes see it as the option right to the right of that says brand Zule Kitchen. That would just mean that they haven't actually created a store, but they could still be brand registered. And in this case, some of the benefits of brand registry, if you're not remembering them, it's a special program for brand owners. So as long as you have a pending trademark with the USPTO and meet certain packaging criteria to prove that to them, then they give you certain benefits, such as improved protections for your brands. So this includes the ability to report violations or counterfeit products to protect your trademark rights, basically. The other big benefit is improvements to your overall product listing. Things like additional A+ content sections, additional brand story sections, the ability to post videos to your listing. All of these, ideally, if done well, can improve your conversion rates and increase sales. And lastly is it provides you additional advertising tools that are not normally available if you were not brand registered. So things like brand stores, sponsored brands, sponsored display, video advertisements, stuff like that. How do you do this then? Well, first of all, I will say that most students should ultimately brand register if you've reviewed your product with your coach, you have a strong launch plan, and you have the budget for a trademark, which can be anywhere from about $300 to $800, depending on what approach you're taking and what country you live in, etc. The overall process, pretty simple. I'll walk through it briefly here, but we do have additional documentation on this. Overall, it looks something like you ensure that your brand is printed clearly on your product or packaging, ideally both. You apply for a US trademark through the USPTO. And once you get confirmation that you are in pending status, which usually takes about 48 hours or so, then you can apply for brand registry with Amazon. They'll do a system check in the background to confirm that, hey, this person owns this pending trademark. And once you've kind of proven that out, they might ask you to show pictures of the product or packaging, which is why we ensured that already. And once that's kind of all approved and you get your brand registered, you can create your listing using your brand name. So for more information on this, we do have a document you can look up from the FBA Masterclass called Brand Registry and Trademark Instruction Guide. You can also visit services.amazon.com for more information. So to summarize this, Amazon brand status for brand registered sellers looks something like this. You're going to have an approved trademark. You're going to get all of those brand registry bonuses that go along with it. You're also going to be able to use your actual brand name on your listing. When to use this, we would recommend it for most launches. Just make sure that you've done your research, you have a strong launch plan, a strong product, and you're fully ready to go by the time it hits the market. There's new options though. Let's look at option number 2. This is the unregistered brand. So this one, it's a little harder to spot because it does show up with the brand name, the same way it would if it was a brand registered product. But in this case, you'll probably see no additional A+ content, no videos, or no store. That's probably the only way to really isolate and tell if somebody is maybe an unregistered brand. But spotting it is less important than actually understanding what it is. First of all, it's a very new thing, but it can be useful. So if this is, for instance, your first product, you're on a very low budget and you're not fully ready to invest in a trademark or additional A+ content, for instance, then this option will basically just allow you to upgrade at a later time, which can be beneficial as well. So if you have a hit product, you can invest more as you go. In this case, the process is a little vague, but I'm going to give you the best recommendations we have, which is first, ensure that your brand is printed clearly on your product or packaging. Then go ahead and create your listing through the add product method that we usually recommend. And in this case, you'll expect a 5665 error. When it pops up, they'll probably require you to submit some additional evidence that basically shows that your brand is printed on your product or packaging. But getting past that, you should be able to get approved to create the listing. And the benefit of this then is if in the future you do get a trademark, after it's brand registered, you'll be able to basically work with seller support to sync the existing listing under your newly registered brand. So there are some challenges. I'm going to warn you about this because the benefit of putting off these additional spends comes with additional risk. So first of all, this is a very new status. There's very little information available on it. So I foresee that you might expect some issues and risks around it. So first of all, some issues with the setup process. Amazon's actual instructions are very vague. I expect that you'll have to do some troubleshooting, and it might be a little more challenging working with seller support to get around the 5665 error. So for an example, they have a video that says that you can apply for this via the selling application for catalog authorization page, but no such page actually exists. So that's been a little frustrating. This is just Amazon being Amazon. Sometimes you've got to jump through a number of hurdles and just work your way through it. It's not a perfect system. There might also be additional warnings around the upgrading process, which is if you apply for a USPTO trademark later on and you actually get it rejected, so say it's too close to somebody else's trademark, thus you might actually have to change your brand name after all. And when you go to work with Amazon later, they might tell you, well, that's a different brand name, so you're going to have to create a new listing. So you might all be for naught, and you might have destroyed your listing after all. So there's also no guarantee that Amazon will actually approve your brand in the future. So you're basically postponing all of these costs, which is a benefit, but you're taking on some additional risk. So once again, we'll say I would only recommend this option if this is your first product, you're super low on budget, and you're willing to work through some of these hurdles and risks that may come up later on through this process. But if you're willing to do that, could be worth it for you. So to summarize, for an unregistered brand, you do not have a trademark yet, and therefore you do not get any of the brand registry bonuses like A+ content or videos, etc. You do, however, get to use your brand name. And there is the ability to upgrade to a registered brand in the future, but with the help of seller support. They just need to link your new brand register to this old listing that you had running already. So once again, only do this if it's your first product, low budget, or you're not ready to invest in trademark registration or things like A+ content. Lastly, generic. So this one is pretty clear. You'll spot them very easily, and there's going to be a lot of them around. Some warnings about generic though. It's really easy to set up. There's really no process. You just create the listing and use generic within it. The downfall of that though is that the listing is really open for the market. So walking through these step by step, it's kind of, this is not your listing. Amazon owns the listing, which means that anyone that sells a similar product can actually sell that product on your listing. Furthermore, you might face some issues from time to time when going to edit it. Because it's not your listing ultimately, Amazon might have disagreements between people that sell on that listing that you might not be able to resolve. So you might have to chat with Amazon seller support from time to time if it's not letting you update the title, for instance. Lastly, upgrading, as we've already specified. Theoretically, in this new system, you may not be ever able to upgrade this listing to a brand registered listing in the future. You'd basically have to abandon it, create a brand new listing with a brand new sales history, brand new reviews, and so you'd have that additional risk there. Now, some people have had some success working past this with some Fiverr specialists, but there's no guarantees on that. It's something that you'll have to consider. But we would only ever use the generic status then for your 20-unit challenge, because in the 20-unit challenge, we want to keep our costs low. We want to keep our options open for our main product in the future. So I would never get brand registered for a 20-unit challenge. I would keep it generic since you only have 20 units to sell anyways. If anyone wants to use your listing after that, which they won't probably, then it's not a problem. So to kind of summarize it all, this gives you the high level view, but I'll walk through generic. With generic, you do not have a trademark or any of the brand registry bonuses. You do not have the ability to use your brand name on the listing itself, and it is unlikely that you'll ever be able to upgrade to a brand registered listing. They'll make you create a new one, although there might be some workarounds, but there's no guarantees. So only really use this for your 20-unit challenge. I hope this kind of clarifies the different statuses that are available for potential brand owners as you go to think about whether or not you're ready to jump into brand registry.
So you need a brand story for your brand. Now, what is a brand story? There's two ways to form a brand story. One way is what we call the founder story, and the other way is actually a story based on your customers. So first, we're actually going to be talking about some of the founder stories, and this is a really easy way for you to relate to them, and then perhaps you can create your own story in this way. So I'll go first. So my friend Damien, he launched a late night cookie snack company. The reason why he launched it is because he noticed he has a sweet tooth, right? And what he noticed at night, he would try to reach for these like Oreo, these like Chip Ahoy, and then in the back of the packaging, the ingredients are absolutely nasty. So it's like super high sugar, super high carbs. And after he eats it, he'll feel like crap and he can't even go to sleep because he got a sugar high. So what he sought to do is, hey, I really like late night snacking. What if I create a late night snack that actually has like melatonin in it? A snack that has low sugar, a snack that has low carb. So after I have the snack, right, I have my sweet tooth quenched. Then on top of that, it makes me sleepy. So that is his brand story. He went ahead and actually solved one of his own problems.
Yeah, Tom, and I'll just share my story with the Rideo Kids Bike brand. So I remember distinctly, I don't remember the moment, but I remember the emotion. And tapping into emotion with brand stories, I think, is really powerful. But when I first rode a bike as a kid, it was the first time I really felt independent. Like, it's all on me. I don't have my parents around. The emotion of freedom, the emotion of getting outside, and those things have literally stuck with me for my whole life and ultimately led me into falling in love with bikes, and I still ride bikes today. So the brand story of Rideo is really about tapping into that inner child, that feeling of freedom, that feeling of independence that most people in the Western world have felt, certainly our customers have felt. So taking your story, attaching emotion to it that people can relate to and that can see themselves in it is a powerful way to connect your brand and your products with the people actually buying it.
Right, because at the end of the day, you have to understand people connect to each other based on stories and emotions, right? So that emotion, like when you were talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I know what that feels like. I was in like China. I remember riding my bike and then I took the training wheels off and I just felt like such a big kid at that point. Yeah. I remember my dad going after me. He was so proud. It was such a happy moment. If you told a story like that, I think majority of people can relate to that. Now, which one sounds better? That story, or it's like, oh, this is the kids like brand, bike brand that you can give to your kids. Like, there's no emotion to that. So people don't like that. Now, that's the founder story. There's a lot of stories on TikTok now. If you just go on social media, it's like becoming a big thing where founders will actually tell people about their story. And then people really love the brand for the founder story. They want to follow this founder on like the journey. So you too can create that founder story. And again, this all ties back to the very beginning of like, hey, you should create a product that you're passionate about. You should solve a problem that you can identify that you're also passionate about, because you can bake all that into the brand story. Now, there's another story which is called the customer story. And this is a story I decided to do with Sidara Skincare, because the authentic story of Sidara Skincare would be like Tom, who is a, Asian male in his early 20s trying to make money on Amazon. So he found vitamin C serum and decided to launch that. That would be like the brand story. If that was my brand story, my business will literally receive $0 in revenue, because whoever sees that story is like, dude, I'm not going to buy this skincare. Like, what the hell is this? But I met a guy named Max Kerwick, and he decided he actually has this consulting firm. And what he does is he helps Amazon sellers to find their brand stories, because my brand story is not uncommon. A lot of Amazon sellers, this is their story. So what he does is, hey, you actually don't need a founder story. You need a customer story. So what does that mean? Well, he actually interviewed our customers and understood who they were. And then we use their stories, their pain points to actually figure out what is Sidara Skincare's brand story. So what I'll do is I'll include a presentation from Max Kerwick. Rather, other than us explaining it, would rather give you some like extra bonuses. This is like, I paid him $18,000 for this. So you guys getting an amazing bonus right here. And I'm going to include a presentation down below. And I'm also going to include Sadara Skincare's brand book. These are stuff that we got from Max. Now, I'm not telling you to spend $18,000 with Max. Like, that's not what I'm saying by any means. But what I am saying is that you need a good brand story, because ultimately when people go on your website, go on Amazon, there's an About Us section. Like, if they read that story, they're going to connect to you. Now, the last way is to ask ChatGPT. So you can actually give ChatGPT a prompt, and you can say, hey, can you create a good brand story for my dog harness brand where I sell to dog owners, for example? These are different prompts you can use for ChatGPT, and you can see what ChatGPT actually gives back to you. So again, 2 different types of stories: founder story, customer story, but a good story is always super, super important. Oh, it is 1, you're right. But I don't think that's going to be a huge factor in terms of conversion rate.
Yeah.
Like, majority of the people are only buying 1. Majority of the people are only buying 1. So it's just weird. Like, I like the product. Like, I actually think this is a pretty good product, in all honesty. It checks it checks the commitment, it checks this, it checks that, everything looks good. I just have a really weird feeling that it's something on the back end of Amazon, because I've never ever seen this, and it's not a very friendly word, disabled. So, But
why is my jazz, I did a test product first. Why is the jazz also disabled?
Well, everything's disabled, so I don't know.
So the whole account has something.
I'm really not too sure what the issue is here. So right now, we're gonna have a call with Max, but happy to discuss this further after the call with Max. And yeah, we're for sure gonna dive a little bit deeper. But in terms of my thinking process, like, of this entire situation, okay, no sales. I really want everybody to understand how I think, because it's a set of principles. Now, if you have that set of principles, you can also make those decisions, just like how I make these decisions. Okay, so obviously this is not like, I would love to be standing here right now and be like, oh guys, look, it's selling 20 units a day, and all I did with this. It will sound a lot more encouraging. But the fact of the matter is, business is business, and there's ups and there's downs. But this is, I think, it's like a good lesson learned for everybody, right? But now we have a guest speaker. Max, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Can you hear me? Cool.
Yes. Max, so here, let me just. So we got a classroom. Say hi to Max.
Man, I got an actual room full of people. What a treat.
Yes. Not just me, but a full room. So I'm just gonna put a computer here, so you're basically just gonna look at the whiteboard. But just we have a. Can you see yourself? Yeah, you can.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So that's you, and that's them, and everybody, all the students can see you. So Max, yeah, let's just get into it. So,
okay.
You want to just introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm assuming I can share my screen and get the, get a presentation going.
Yeah, let me make you a host.
I am the host now.
All right. You are
Great.
now.
How's everybody doing today? Woo! Oh man, I love the enthusiasm. I'm not expecting that on a Saturday afternoon sitting in a classroom. That's a lot of energy there. I appreciate
I'm teaching too, so.
Yeah, well, true. Okay, cool. Hold on one second. I'm going to share my screen.
Do you guys want to pull the blinds down so it's actually? Yeah, I'll turn the lights off.
All right. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and go into presentation mode. If anything messes up here, just give me a shout.
Give me a second, Max, sorry. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
1 second.
Nobody fall asleep now that it's getting darker in there, okay? You still have to pay attention.
Okay. If you can't hear it, you want to come to the front? Maybe just pull up the chair here, because that's the loudest the speaker goes. Max, if you want to speak a little bit louder, that would be great as well. It's just coming off the Mac.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, just scream.
All right, well, Yeah, I'll just scream at the top of my lungs. At least these people who are I can see very close to me should be able to hear me. So
Yeah.
you know, they could just like play a game of telephone and pass the information back. But okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive in. Tom, am I good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So just real quick kind of overview of what we're going to be going over today. I'm going to kind of walk you through my brand philosophy. I'm going to walk you through a couple of exercises. I'm going to talk about how to bring it to life on Amazon specifically, and then I'll have a Q&A where you or Tom or whoever can ask questions. But a real quick introduction to me before I dive into the content. My name is Max. I have a business called Brand Builder Strategy. I also host a podcast called the Brand Builder Podcast on the Capitalism Network. And I live my life to help develop brands, to help tell stories, and to help them find their best customers. I like to say that I transform businesses into brands. So a lot of times when I work with people, they have, you know, strong kind of cash flowing businesses, they have good products, they have sales, all that kind of stuff, but they haven't really identified their best customers, and they haven't really identified a story that is going to make their business truly scalable kind of across channels. So a lot of times I'm working with people when, you know, they've gotten to $4 or $5 million in sales and they want to get to 10. And in order to do that, they know they need to get into retail, or they know they need to be able to sell on their own website or on Amazon. And I help them kind of craft that marketing story and that strategy that will enable them to kind of scale their business. If you want more about me, let me know. Happy to answer any questions, but that's just kind of where I come from. Primarily consulting environment. I work almost exclusively with physical product businesses at this point. But my background before this was doing the same kind of stuff with technology businesses. So apps and software and things like that. So I'm going to dive in with my brand philosophy and kind of walk you through with what I'm talking about when I talk about a brand. From what Tom has told me, you guys are kind of early in the stages of building a business on Amazon, an FBA business. Is that's the case?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, great. So I work with a lot of people that sell on Amazon, as well as people who don't. And so I have a lot of kind of context that I can share with you guys here. But first off, I want to just kind of level set. What am I talking about when I'm talking about a brand, right? A lot of people, brand is kind of a buzzword. It's something that people talk about a lot, and it can mean different things to different people. So when I talk about brand, I am not just talking about your logo, right? I am not talking about your color palette. I'm not talking about the fonts. I'm not talking about the beautiful book that your 99 Designs designer gave you after you finished your logo contest or anything like that. And I'm not even talking about your packaging, right? Or your product or anything, right? What I am talking about when I talk about brand is I am talking about the collective emotional response to your product or service, right? I am talking about the relationship that you have with your customer. I'm talking about brand as a strategic asset for your business, something that makes it more valuable, something that guides your decision-making, and something that, you know, helps with product roadmap, helps with marketing, everything. I'm not just talking about kind of the traditional, like, oh, you know, brand as creative, right? Colors, voice, writing style, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about all of those things kind of boiled into one, right? But a brand fundamentally is the expectations, memories, and stories that a person associates with your product or service, right? Every time someone comes into contact with your brand, they're reinforcing a story that that you're trying to tell, right? So someone who has experience with your brand has expectations, they have memories of using it in the past, they have stories that they can tell about themselves or about other people, right? And that is really at the core of what I'm talking about when I talk about brand. And really, again, what it comes down to is brand is a relationship that you have with your customer. And everything you do is an opportunity to either make that relationship stronger or make it weaker, right? So brand is a promise. And most importantly, brand is differentiation that is meaningful to your customers. So I can't really stress this enough, right? But especially in an environment like Amazon, right? Where the differences between products can be pretty limited, right? It can come down to price, it can come down to number of reviews, things like that. Brand is a way across any marketplace and in-store. It's a shortcut to making decisions, right? When people find a brand that they trust, they don't have to go through the process of comparing products, of looking at things side by side, doing anything like that. They have found this brand is meaningfully different, right? from all of the others in a way that is meaningful to me, right? And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and buy this brand, right? We all have favorite brands. We all have brands that we know and trust. Even if we don't consider ourselves brand people, we can't make purchase decisions evaluating every single option every single time. And so we use brand as a shortcut to do that, right? And if your brand is literally just a creative brand, like all you did was just slap another label on there, and we made zero choices from a marketing perspective or a product perspective or any perspective that make it actually different in the minds of our customers, then no one's going to buy it, right? It has to be meaningful. It can't just be another color. So a question that I think is worth asking in this context, right? Because Amazon is so crowded and because there are so much, is can you build a brand on Amazon, right? And the short answer is yes, right? Obviously, we wouldn't be here if I didn't think that we could build a brand on Amazon. I wouldn't work with the clients that I work with if you couldn't build a brand on Amazon. And, I like to, just show two examples here of very, very, very strong, very valuable brands that are built primarily on the back of Amazon, right? We have got Anker on the, electronics on the charging side, and you have Instant Pot, which launched almost exclusively on Amazon, still does, the lion's share of their sales there, right? So those are examples of people who have done it at a very, very, very large scale. When you come down from that, there's lots of good, healthy brands that have been built on Amazon. But the longer answer to that question is it's kind of complicated, right? Because it is not easy to build a brand on Amazon. It is easy to build cash flow on Amazon. It is easy to sell products on Amazon relative to selling into retail, relative to selling on your own website, relative to almost any other business model that involves selling products, right? It's easier to sell products on Amazon, but it is harder to build a brand. And the reason for that is because the same things that make Amazon an amazing selling platform make it a difficult brand building platform, right? On the positives, we've got a massive pool of buyers. We've got 150 million people in the US, right, that are Prime members that are buying on Amazon all the time, right? The negative to that is you have no direct connection to them, right? Amazon is the one that owns that relationship, and you're piggybacking off it, right? You have access to those buyers right at the point of purchase, right? Right when they're making that purchase decision based on a keyword that they're searching for. That's insanely powerful, right? Most companies spend thousands, millions and millions of dollars to get people to that point of purchase, and you're getting access to them right there, right? The downside to that is you have like an extremely limited opportunity to establish value and kind of price competition, like be able to create value and charge higher prices, right? Because you're all stacked up looking exactly the same at the point of purchase, right? You get access to the keyword data that shows, hey, here's a product that people are buying, right? Which is amazing, right? Most companies, when they start, like throughout time, you have this period where you're trying to prove product market fit, right? Where there's, and I apologize if you hear my Pomeranian barking in the background, working from home this Saturday. But if you have access to all this keyword data that shows like, hey, there's a hole in the market that you can fill, right? This product is selling at a high price and all that kind of stuff. The downside of that is you get tons of competitors releasing nearly identical products, right? There's no barrier to getting credit card information. But again, that trust and relationship is with Amazon, not with you, right? When someone asks them where they bought that product, they're going to say, hey, I bought it on Amazon, not I bought it from whatever your brand name is. You get the turnkey fulfillment, which obviously is amazing, makes this business model possible, right? But it also takes away your ability to kind of wow with the customer experience. You can't have that, custom box and the, kind of white glove delivery and all the things that you can do when you're selling through your own storefront. And then you have a standardized brand presence, which is great because it makes decisions simple and you just design for the platform and everything. But again, that creates non-existent brand recognition. So this, again, the same things that make Amazon this amazing selling platform, this place where you can acquire cash flow faster than any other platform for sure, right? Also makes it very difficult to build a brand. And really, the reason for that is because Amazon wants you to build a business selling products. They want you to be dependent on their platform. They don't want to give you access to their customers, right? They don't know what you're going to do with that. And so they really want you to just focus on doing the things that feed their algorithm, right? Finding holes in their product supply, developing those products, selling them, competing with other people and just selling lower and lower prices, and then selling, as much volume of that as possible so that you can just pay them their fees, right? and they'll make a ton of money. They'll have happy customers, and you'll kind of be a slave to this algorithm, right? And that's really what they want, right? And I'll give you an example here. My wife and I are expecting our first child in July 1st. And as part of that process, I've come much, much more familiar with baby products, which before I had never really had any contact with. And so there's this brand that sells a single product called DockATot, right? And this is basically just a ridged pillow that, you put your baby down, infant, before it can crawl around and before it can move, keeps it safe. It's not going to fall off the couch. It's not going to do anything like that. And they charge $175 for that ridged pillow. It's crazy. They have all these, different designs and all that kind of stuff, but it's really slick looking. It's, people love it. It's got a gazillion reviews. It's super well, followed on social media. They have a community. Email marketing is really great. Definitely recommend you guys just check it out from a marketing perspective. It's good, kind of list to get on and everything. But Amazon's approach to a brand like this is to say, and this is exactly what I did when I saw it, right? I'm like, $175 for that. Somebody has to do that cheaper, right? And there's a real opportunity there. And so phase one of Amazon, right, is you find that Me Too product where it's like people all of a sudden are searching for DockATot or Baby Lounger or whatever it is, right? And so I've got the one here for $175. It's on brand, right? And then I've got Mommy Baby who came in and just, created a version that's $67. And it's like, okay, great. There's a great role for that. It's more or less the same product. I can get it, and then for a while, right, you get reviews, you get sales. But if you don't take the time to actually establish a brand, the next thing that happens is someone else comes along and has the exact same product with a slightly different design, right? And they're going to charge $57 for it instead of $67. I'm sure the margins on that are still pretty good. It's just a ridged pillow. But very, 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 very quickly, you're just going to see more and more and more and more and more of the same product, right? And, maybe this first one, Mommy Baby, can kind of carve off a place, right? They can be that mid-priced alternative that has more reviews and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, these products are almost exactly the same. They're probably made by the same manufacturer, someone similar. And the way that people are going to enter that market is they're just going to keep undercutting price, right? Meanwhile, DockATot is just going to sit up there and continue to collect $175 a pop, right? They're not going to respond to the price competition because that'll decrease the perceived value of the brand, right? And they'll sell on their own website. They'll sell on Amazon. Amazon will be a profitable channel for them, right? And meanwhile, everyone else is going to fight it out below, right? And this just kind of repeats infinitely. And you see this across every single category, right? And again, it's exactly what Amazon wants you to do. So when you look at those, which of those businesses do you think is more profitable? Which is more valuable if someone's going to acquire it? Which is more fun to run, right? It's no question. If I look at this, I want the one that's $175, right? And obviously they're first to market. They've built a great brand, all that kind of stuff. But that is just, the story of DockATot is just a single mom, no funding, no anything like that, who just developed a product for herself and started selling it, right? No different than any one of you guys in the room. So building a brand, building just a cash flowing business starts with identifying a product on Amazon. Building a brand starts with identifying the person that you want to serve, right? When I look at a brand like DockATot, I know exactly who that's for, right? That is for the new mom who is at home. She might be at home alone. She is, dealing with an infant maybe for the first time, right? And you are giving her a sense of security that if she leaves her baby alone for a second, right, that baby is not going to roll off the couch. And that is an extremely powerful thing. That is an extremely powerful relationship to be a part of, right? And, if you look at their relatively new brand, but when you look at what they're doing from a brand perspective, right, that gives them license to have a community for new moms, right? Not just on Instagram, but they have a group, an email listserv that you can join. They have a Facebook group that you can be a part of that's for new moms. They're developing products for young kids too, to kind of help keep them comfortable in bed and all this kind of stuff, right? But they're really starting with this person, right, of this new mom with this new baby that they want to keep safe, right? Versus, hey, there's a hole in this market and I can just plug in a product. And so when we talk about building a brand, our products can't be our message because there are so many people out there selling exactly what we do, right? We're not developing, a revolutionary product that's totally different that no one has ever seen, right? We're probably doing a tweak on something that's already existed. And so we need to be realistic with that. And brand is your opportunity to create that differentiation, right? Brand needs things to stand on, right? So if you can't just have a different color label, but you can make small tweaks to the product. You can have a different story. You can have better customer service. You can have all of these different things, right? In order to get past this. And, there's a study that comes out every year that looks at the top 100 most valuable brands. And this is looking at brand as a percentage of their total value, right? And so, you've got your Amazon, you've got your Apple, Google, Microsoft, all your big tech companies up top. But, you also have Coca-Cola, and you've got Nike and Starbucks and all that kind of stuff. But big brands take this very seriously because brand drives margins, brand drives actual value at the sale. When I work with a company that is selling only on Amazon, right, which is very rare, the multiple that they can command is, at best 3x, right? Multiple of profit, right? But when you look at, brands that can sell successfully across channels, right, that can sell on their own website, that can sell in retail, that have Amazon as part of the play, right, that have a compelling story to tell, and they have access to their own customers and they understand who they sell to. That type of brand is much, much, much more valuable to the person buying it than just on a pure Amazon play. So my philosophy boils down to kind of 4 things. 1, brand is a relationship that is strengthened or weakened with every audience touch point, right? What that means is every single time you come into contact with someone, whether it's in your ad, whether it is in your Amazon listing, whether it is when they actually get the product itself, right? When they talk to your customer service rep, when they get your follow-up email, it doesn't matter. Every single one of those is an opportunity to establish and strengthen a relationship with your customer or make it weaker, right? If you have a shitty customer service experience, that's going to destroy everything that you did, up until that point, right? If you have a great listing and the product is terrible, you blew it, right? So brand is a relationship that is strengthened or weakened with every audience touch point. We are not in the product business. We do not sell products. We build relationships, right? We are in the relationship business. We have a customer, right, that we are building these products for, right? And we need to understand them so that we can kind of continue to build that relationship, right? Again, 360-degree branding, we have to think about how does our brand come to life across every single channel that a customer is going to come into contact with? And then in order to reinforce those relationships, we need to agree on what is the direction of our brand and what is the message that we are communicating out, right? And so if we can figure out those things and we can kind of keep that in mind, then it doesn't matter that we're starting on Amazon as a channel, right? Because every single time that we come into contact with them, we have a very consistent message and we show that we understand the customer and meet them kind of where they're at. So with that being said, it's time to start thinking about your business as a brand, right? We are not here just to sell products. We are not here just to feed Amazon's algorithm, right? We are here to build a really strong, healthy business, right? A healthy brand that serves customers, that can command higher margins, and that ultimately is going to be more fun for you to run and more valuable if you choose to sell, right? That's what we're here to do. So with all that said, I start at the place where all brands need to start, which is who is your brand for? Okay. So before we dive into that, I'm going to pause, catch my breath for a second. Any thoughts, any questions? Tom, do you want me to just blow through this and get to Q&A, or how do you guys want to handle this?
Q&A at the end. Yeah, let's just go through the slides first.
Okay, cool. Okay. So again, the difference between just building a cash flowing Amazon business, right, which starts with, okay, looking at the numbers, where's the product holes, how can I source the product, that, all that kind of stuff. When we're thinking about brand, right, we start with the person. Who's the person that we're going to serve? When we think about marketing, a lot of times we think about segments, right? So we might think about, oh, okay, I'm going to target the millennial traveler, or the green mom, or these kind of specific combination of demographic and interest, right? We think about segments. I like to say that we build brands for unicorns, right? We don't want to think about building a brand for 7 different people, because then the messaging and how we think about it is going to get very confused. So when I say unicorn, I mean the customer who is most predictive of our long-term success, right? That is who we build this business around. The person who, if all of our customers look like this, we would be successful beyond our wildest dreams, right? And I've sat in a room, and not to pick on Tom here, but with a lot of like 28-year-old dudes, right, who sell to, usually I'm like, okay, who's your ideal customer? Who's the person that if all your customers look like this, you'd be successful beyond your wildest dreams, right? And they say something like, busy moms, right? That's not detailed enough, right? All moms are busy. It doesn't matter if they have 1 newborn kid. It doesn't matter if they have 3 kids that are all out of college. All moms are busy, right? It's a very different profile of person depending on who you're looking at, right? You might have the, mom that's 25 years old that has 3 kids under 5 and is a stay-at-home mom, right? You might have the mom who's, in her early 40s, works a corporate consulting gig, has 2 kids in high school, and her biggest problem is that she doesn't have enough time to connect with her kids, right? These people look very different, and even though they fit under that kind of wide label of busy mom, right, they're very different people. So when it comes to brand building, right, and this is both for messaging and for product development and all that kind of stuff, we really need to think about, okay, exactly who is this person, right? And I have a list of customers, or sorry, not a list of customers, list of questions here. You can write these down, or I'll share this deck with Tom as well. So if you don't want to, furiously.
I'm going to upload this onto the membership portal after. So this is something I'm recording this right now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, there's just the broad questions of who are we for, right? Demographically, we still need to know that, but behaviorally too, like how do these people act? Like, what do they like to do? How do they spend their time during the week? Are these the type of people who get up really early? Are these the type of people who sleep in? Are these the type of people who, go out to eat every night, or do they cook dinner 3 times a week? What does that look like? Like, get that down in as much detail as possible, right? And then psychographically, what do they care about? What motivates them? What are they trying to achieve in their life, right? You need to understand these things to be able to market to them, right? And even if the only place that you're marketing to them is on your Amazon listing, right? You need to show up understanding what they need, right? And what they're trying to achieve, and the role that you can play in that with your products and your brand, right? Beyond that, if you want to dive in a little bit more detailed, what do they look like? What keeps them up at night, right? We need to be able to show them like, hey, we understand what you're afraid of, right? We understand what stresses you out, and be able to kind of message against that. What are their goals, right? What are you trying to achieve? What is this all about, right? People don't go around being like, man, I'm all about ridged pillows to put my babies on, right? Like, people don't actually give a shit about the product at all. What they care about is being a good parent, right? And successfully raising a child, keeping it safe, all that kind of stuff, right? I don't care about the ridged pillow. All I care about is like, I want my wife to be like very fucking confident, and I want to be very fucking confident when I'm with my baby, right? That she's going to be safe. What are their challenges, right? What can you help them address? What do they care most about in life, right? Are they career-driven people? Do they have big career goals? Are they family-driven? Are they all about the outdoors? Are they all about partying? Like, what is it that they're all about, right? What makes them feel good? How can you make them feel confident, right? I used to work with a woman whose version of this was, how do you help your customer get laid, right? And at the end of the day, if you don't get your customer laid, if you don't make them feel confident, right, you really have no role to play in their life, right? And a lot of times we think, like, I sell organizational things, things that help people organize their desks. Like, how could that possibly get someone laid? Well, it's really tempting to go down that path, right? But anything at the end of the day, basically anything can serve a big role, right? If I am super unorganized, if my house constantly looks like a disaster, right, and it's really stressful every time I come back from working with a client, I walk in, I'm tired, my house is a disaster, right? If I have some tools that can finally help me get over that, right, that can kind of keep that mess contained, do all that kind of stuff, man, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to have a better energy when I'm waking up, right? And you can start to kind of put these things together, right? And then how do they measure success, right? What does a successful day look like to them? And what role can my product play in that, right? So again, there's a lot of questions here, but I really encourage you guys to go through this exercise for your brand to think about, like, who is the person that if all my customers look like this, you know, I would never have to worry another day in my life, right? That these people would buy from me multiple times, that they would buy multiple products for me, that have a lot of problems, that have clear goals that they're trying to reach, and just document that person in as much detail as you possibly can. An exercise, like some people find this difficult, right? If you serve an audience that you're not super familiar with, that, you know, I definitely, everything that I do starts with discovery, right? If I don't know the audience, I go out and talk to them, right? I go find them. And that's easier for me because I have, you know, clients with, you know, big budgets and things like that. And I can pay to go talk to those people. But I guarantee you're selling consumer products. I guarantee you can find someone that you know in your circle who, you know, who is into whatever you're selling, right? Even if you know, sell computer parts, or you need to talk to gamers, or, you know, you talk to knife enthusiasts or new moms, or like, I guarantee you know somebody who you can talk to that will give you a little bit of a better picture of like, here's what my life looks like and here's what I care about when it relates to these things, right? The other thing you can do is think about like, okay, are there characters from like TV shows or movies or things like that that I can kind of think of, that I can kind of orient around, that'll help kind of give me a shortcut to this? Like who would be the best person to buy from this? And really push past the questions like, oh, I just, you know, I like people who like SoulCycle and Lululemon and things like that. Like really dig into like, okay, what makes this person different and what makes my take on that person different? Okay, so again, that's step one, focusing on the customer, really identifying that person. Once we have done that, then we can start to figure out, okay, what messages does that person need to hear in order to convert to my brand, right? So I'm a consultant. I like slide decks. I like pyramids, all that kind of stuff. You guys are gonna hear my methodology here. But who here took like an intro to psych class and remembers Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Show of hands. All right, cool. We've got some hands there. But Maslow's hierarchy, right, is, you know, at the very bottom, we've got the basic things that we need to survive, right? We've got food, we've got water, we've got shelter, we've got sleep. And if we don't have those, we're going to spend all of our time trying to get them, right? Those are the basic building blocks for life, for survival, all that kind of stuff. Once we get those things, then we have permission to move up to the next level, right? Which is things that kind of address emotional needs, community, relationships, love, that kind of stuff. And once we have satisfied those, then we finally kind of are able to ascend to our highest level, which is to really kind of ponder the meaning of life and like what makes me me, right? And what makes, you know, Tom, right? Like we all have kind of our own unique identity, but we can't really ponder that. We can't really spend the time thinking about that if we haven't built on, you know, the other two levels of the pyramid. And that's why it's displayed as a pyramid, because it all builds on each other, right? So brands behave in much the same way as people, in the sense that for any given category, right, there are certain things at a functional level that you need to do, right? You know, these are kind of the ante to get into the game. So I like to use cars as an example, right? But every car, it doesn't matter what brand, you know, needs to have wheels, needs to have a chassis, needs to have, if it's a new car, it probably needs to have, not probably, it certainly does need to have like electric door lock and electric windows. At this point, it probably needs to have Bluetooth stereo, needs to have some sort of advanced safety system, all that kind of stuff. And that's just kind of the ante to get in the game. It doesn't matter if you're looking at a Kia or a BMW. It's all kind of got the same equipment at a base level, right? Once we have satisfied those things, right, we have permission to move up to the next level, which are what are kind of options packages, things that we can offer above and beyond the competition that make people feel a certain way, right? I use that kind of crass example of, you know, how do you get your customer laid? A lot of times, you know, options packages can kind of make people feel more confident, right? If I've got, again, with the car example, you know, if I've got a premium Bose sound system through the car, like that can make me feel like, hey, this is like, you know, this car is more fun to drive. It sounds really great. It's impressive when I, you know, bring people in the car. People outside the car can hear the bass and all that kind of stuff, right? That's an options package that makes, you know, people feel a certain way, right? I had to pay extra for that. It's extra margin for the dealer and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, today's options packages are going to be tomorrow's standard equipment, right? We don't build brands around options packages because eventually someone is going to say, you know what, I'm going to make that premium stereo standard equipment, right? I'm going to just make that standard across all my cars, right? You can't buy a car that doesn't have, all these things. And Acura is a great example of this. They basically just take everyone else's middle package and make it kind of standard, right? So you can't buy a car from them that doesn't have heated and cooled seats. You can't buy a car from them that doesn't have a sunroof and all that kind of stuff. And eventually other car manufacturers at that level are going to have to match that, right? Because that just the expectation that they create is that, hey, this is available in all trims of our cars. But assuming that you are able to offer those options packages, right, then you can get up to the self-expressive benefits, which are the things that really make each brand unique, right? What makes a Lexus and not a Kia? What makes a Volvo and not a BMW, right? You know something about the person based on the car that they chose to drive, right? And those are the things that are the hardest to deliver. They're the hardest to imitate, but they're the most differentiating. And it's really kind of the key element of having an emotional brand, what makes it different at a fundamental level. It's pretty difficult for a new brand to get to something, I think of Volvo as a great example, where, their brand is all about safety, right? Everybody, if you're a parent or you're a family person, everybody knows that Volvo is the safety brand, right? And they've invested a ton of money into marketing that. They've invested a ton of money into developing, innovative kind of safety features in their vehicles. They always get 5-star everything, right? They're at the point where it would take another brand, 10 or 20 years of sustained investment to overtake them, right? But they have spent a really long time building that reputation, building that brand equity. You're not going to get that from day one, right? At the entry level of the brand, we're really focused on, okay, first off, what do I need to offer to be considered in this category, right? That's the exercise that you guys made when you started with your first product, right? You went and looked at and said, okay, looks like based on this keyword volume or whatever it is that there's an opportunity here, but what do people expect based on this category? Right? And you go in and figure that stuff out. The trap on Amazon is that most people will then say, oh, okay, cool. Let's say I'm in the supplement space. I'm going to go in and I'll pay a little extra for third-party lab testing on my supplement, right? And I'm going to put that as an options package, right? That's something that'll really make my brand stand out. Or I'm going to use all organic ingredients, right? That's going to make my brand stand out. If there are 20 other brands on the front page that offer that same thing, that is not an options package. That is not something you can charge extra for. That is standard equipment, right? You have to do better than that. You have to push farther than that, right? And so the question is, if you get into something like custom formulation, right, where you say, hey, I have a proprietary blend. I have, I brought in some additional ingredients because it has a different effect. I've got caffeine in it, so you can feel the buzz, or I don't have caffeine in it, so it's a little bit milder. Like, those are things that are actually benefits, right, that you can talk about. If you serve a different audience, right, if you make a product that's designed for athletes instead of stay-at-home moms, right, and the brand is totally geared around athletes, that is an emotional benefit to someone who is an athlete, to someone who is more concerned about performance, right? They're going to look at that and they're going to say, hey, I'm willing to pay extra for that because that's for me. That's another type of emotional benefit. Another one that's easy to do early on in the business because it's easy to scale, but if you really over deliver on customer service, right? That's another opportunity for, kind of an options package, something that'll endear people to your brand. That the danger there is that most small businesses over deliver on customer service, right? So that's kind of a tough one. But we need to start out, even though you guys are early in your business, you need to start out thinking about what is that top of the pyramid going to be for my business, right? And so in order to get there, I like to think through 3 questions. And this is how you kind of ascend to the top of the pyramid. And all great brands have answers for these, right? But the first one is, what does it say about somebody that they buy your brand or that they use your brand over all others in the category, right? My favorite thing about branding, my favorite thing about working with brands is that it is a shorthand to tell a story about yourself, right? I use the car example. If I own a Volvo, if I drive a Volvo, that tells a story of me as a family guy, right? If I drive a Ford F-150, that tells a very different story about me. You know something about me from the second I walk out of my car. If I put my phone down on the table and I have an Android, that tells a very different story than if I have an iPhone, right? We use brands to tell stories about ourselves, about what we value. And the best brands in the world are the ones that say something about the person that uses them. So you need to think about, what do you want it to say about somebody that they use your brand? And it can't just be, oh, that they care about quality products, right? That's not a valid answer. That's not how people construct their identity, right? The second thing, and again, this is really, really, really hard for Amazon-based businesses, but what is the singular thing that your customers get from you that they can't get anywhere else, right? This might be the question that takes you the longest to answer, but you need to build your business as if it has an answer, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have anything that people can't get anywhere else, right? Then you have no long-term differentiators, right? You have no long-term defendable barriers to entry, right? And then the last thing is, how do you make your customers feel like a hero in their own story? Some of you are probably familiar with the book Story Brand. Has anybody read that? Okay, cool. If you guys haven't read that, I definitely recommend checking it out. It kind of walks you through brand building from a kind of a story perspective. But the main thing is, and this is a big mistake that entrepreneurs make with their business, is they think about the business as if it's the hero in the story, right? They think about the product as if it's the hero in the story, and they build their marketing like that. We're like, oh my God, look at how amazing this thing is. It can do all of these different things. Engineers are the worst about this. And I told you I used to work in software. Some engineer that's been sitting in his basement coding for 6 months, coming up with a software tool, just wants to market it around all the amazing things that it can do. All the time he put in there marketing it, right? At the end of the day, customers don't give a shit about the product itself. I don't care about the ridged pillow for the dock top, right? I just care about what it makes me feel like, right? And when I have that, and my little baby girl is safe in the dock, right? And I don't have to worry about her falling off, right? That makes me feel heroic. That makes me feel like a parent in what I'm sure is going to be a very confusing time that I won't feel confident, right? But I'm like, I'm confident in this one thing, and that's where my baby's not going to fall off the couch, and I can go up and grab a glass of water, right? Like, that's all I'm looking for, right? And that makes me feel heroic. So you need to think about that, right? So the 3 questions are, what does it say about somebody that they buy from you? What is a singular thing that people get from you that they can't get anywhere else? And how do you make your customers feel like a hero? Okay. Okay, last thing before we dive into Q&A, right? How do we build brands on Amazon, right? The answer, again, is it's not easy. It's a long-term process. Building brands in general is not something you do overnight. A lot of people look at brands, like people that are good on Instagram, things like that have big followings. Again, none of that happens overnight unless you have a ton of money, right? And you need to look at brand building as kind of a brick-by-brick process, with the emphasis on every brick that you lay down needs to be a consistent step from the brick before it. Right. So I talked about having a consistent experience and kind of building that consistent story. When we look on Amazon, right, you have opportunities to tell the story like actually on Amazon itself, right? With your packaging, with the images that you put in your listing, product inserts are a great opportunity, right? And the follow-up sequences that kind of come up. I don't know if people are still doing ManyChat or, going to a website, entering an email sequence, all that kind of stuff. Obviously the follow-up emails that Amazon sends out are not super valuable because most people opt out of them. But if you can drive people to some sort of landing page, your copy in the listing itself, and then, you have your Amazon storefront. Those are all great opportunities to, obviously the lowest hanging fruit, right? You're building a business on Amazon. You need to use the opportunities that Amazon provides you to establish your brand. But you also need, like, if you're truly looking at this as a brand holistically, not just a single channel Amazon FBA business, right? Then you need to look at these things that happen kind of around Amazon's ecosystem, right? That allow you to form a relationship with your customers outside of Amazon. So part of that is social media, right? Getting good content in there. This is an easy way to showcase a personality. I think of social media as kind of the front porch of a brand, where it's like the thing that most people can see. If I'm looking at a business and I want to see kind of what they're about, the first thing that I do is look them up on Instagram and just kind of see what their feed looks like, right? Influencer partners, right? When you get to the point where you're looking for ways to, kind of more cheaply grow your business and not have a ton of ad buying and things like that, picking the right influencer, picking someone if I'm selling things to new moms, I want an influencer who interacts with new moms, who understands what they're all about, who is one herself, that kind of thing, or has been one in the past. Ads obviously is a place, landing pages. And then I actually kind of deprioritize the website. I think you need to have a website, you need to have a presence there. But if your focus is on Amazon, most of the sales are not going to be happening on your website anyways. And so I actually prioritize these other things, particularly social media, influencers, and ads as ways to kind of show up where people already are and not force them to go to your website and try to tell the whole story there, because that's just not, most people are going to look at do 1 or 2 pages on your website. They're not going to consume all the content that you had there. And so you need to be set up in a way to meet them where they're at and tell the story in pieces through posts and ads and influencer content and things like that. So with that, I will again pause for breath, and that's what I've got from the presentation perspective. Tom, how do you want to do Q&A?
Yeah, if you guys have any, well, first of all, let's give a round of applause. If you have a question, just put up your hand, say it, and then I can repeat it back to back.
Yeah, hey man, this is David. Thanks for the presentation. When you were talking about brand, I think one thing that really stands out is that it feels logical to have a group of products that serve a singular purpose, as in there's someone related. But for what we do right now, it could be the case that we don't know what group of products stands out and are related to drive whatever value our brand is going to have. Or we might just be at a point where we just have like assorted products and none of those products really have like any vision in common. So how would you recommend resolving that? Let's say that maybe some of us have like 3, 5, 10 products, and they're all kind of separate. They serve separate purposes. They might not even have the same brand name. How can we figure out what's like the North Star of, okay, maybe I'll start building a brand around a certain product?
That's a good question. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I was able to hear that. That's a great question, one that comes up all the time, right? Especially when it comes to Amazon. So the easiest answer to that is if the brand name is actually different, that like if the name that you sell the products under is different than the name of the seller account, like that's not necessarily a big deal. Most people don't really look, like most consumers don't look at like, oh, the seller name is this, but the brand name is this. Like there might be more of that awareness coming up now, but I still don't see that as an issue. It is a difficult question, right? And the question comes down to like, what do you want your business to be, right? Do you just want to sell a collection of unrelated products? Then, don't worry about brand, right? Just focus on, building a cash flowing business and, playing the game and feeding the Amazon algorithm. Lots of people do that and are able to make money for a period of a couple of years, usually before, something kind of slips off. But the answer, if you are interested in brand and you do want to kind of build something like that's of higher value, is you look at like, okay, let's say I have 10 products and 3 of them are kind of related, and I've got 2 other seller that sell pretty well, and then I've got 5 that aren't really related to anything, right? You start to look at, okay, how can I build around those 3 that are my best sellers, right? That are kind of related. Like how can I figure out the person who buys those, right? And kind of build my future products, plan my future products. Because the reality is you can't have a brand that just sells a bunch of unrelated products. Like it doesn't work that way. You can have a brand that sells different types of products as long as they go to the same person, right? If you sell all natural stuff, right? And some of it is natural supplements, some of it is natural skincare. I've seen stuff like that work. But really you have to make a decision on like, what am I trying to do, right? Am I building just a cash flowing FBA business, or am I trying to build a brand that's going to be able to survive long term and command higher margins and that kind of stuff? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I have a follow-up question to that. So would it make sense then to, let's say, you have a brand and then you put your products under this brand, but eventually you start phasing out products that don't really satisfy that vision. Like for now, maybe you have like 5 products and they're completely different, but they all roll under the same, name. It's like some random name that's like a brand.
Yeah. So from a tactical standpoint, yes. Like, and frankly, I don't actually think if you're going to use Amazon as your starting point, I actually don't think it's a bad thing if you have a couple products that are unrelated and you're just trying to see which one you get traction from. But, you know, if you find one that is a seller, build around that one, right? Don't continue to just roll out unrelated products. If you're trying to build a brand, take the one, you know, like use that as kind of a force multiplier where you're using it to acquire customers and you're using it to acquire cash flow, which you can then reinvest in the business and, you know, build out your list and figure out what other products those people want to sell. That's the biggest difference between people who just build Amazon businesses and people who build brands is, you know, if you're just building a business on Amazon, again, you're just looking at the numbers. You're like, okay, what can I source that I can kind of throw in here, right? Versus, okay, I have this product that, you know, does 100 sales a day, right? Which means I'm acquiring 100 customers a day through Amazon. What else can I sell those people, right? It's chasing customers instead of chasing sales, right? Amazon wants you to just chase the sale, chase the sale, chase the sale, chase the sale. Brands want to say, how valuable can I make each customer who walks in the door? How much stuff can I sell them, right? It's always going to be more efficient to resell to someone who already is familiar with your brand than it is to acquire net new people all the time, right? So.
Let's get okay. There's other. We'll come back to you if there's enough time, because I want to give other people a fair shot as well.
Right. A question about the customer profile. If you have a product that has multiple uses and different type of people can use it, and without a big budget where we can do surveys or something like that, how do we tackle that issue? Like, how do we? I mean, I can assume this is my ideal customer's profile, but it might be totally wrong. So how do we do that without a big budget that we can do surveys?
Yeah, so a little bit of it is just kind of looking at, you know, looking at data that you do have access to, right? Through, you know, reviews and through things like that, through what other brands who have higher budgets, you know, in that category, what they're doing from a marketing perspective and who they're trying to appeal to. So that's, you know, just a competitive intelligence kind of thing. But the question that you have about like, hey, there's multiple types of people who can use this. There's two ways to look at that. One is like, just pick the one that is, you know, the most profitable, that you are most passionate about building the business for, or that is the best, you know, market opportunity, right? And the other is to look at the common threads that tie those people together, right? So I used to work with a client who's an online grocery delivery company based on the East Coast, you know, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., all that kind of stuff. And they probably do $600 million a year in grocery delivery, right? And it's not an Instacart. They actually own the inventory. It's a, you know, basically a giant e-commerce setup for fresh goods. And, you know, their ideal customer, right, is someone who cares about food, who food plays an important role in their life, right, that has lives in a dense urban center that has difficulty procuring good food, right, and probably, you know, has to, if they're going to go grocery shopping in the city, they have to take the food on the subway with them. They have to do things like that, right? That's their core customer. That's who they built their business around. When they actually goes to marketing, they have a bunch of different versions of that person, right? And that's what I meant when I say we build brands for unicorns and we market to segments, right? When we market to segments, we have, you know, all these people care about food, live in dense urban areas, but we have the feed the family types, right? Who are, you know, young parents, have young kids in the house. They're mainly concerned with, you know, getting food on the table quickly that their kids will eat. We've got the joy of food people who, you know, spend a lot of time making things, you know, host a lot of meals, do things like that. We've got people who see food as like a more practical thing, that are counting their macros, that are more concerned with food quality than, you know, flavor or things like that. And then you have people who are, you know, have celiac or gluten intolerant, things like that, who are more like solution seekers looking for specific problems, right? All of those people ladder up to like that singular profile of, you know, care about natural, care about food, have trouble procuring it, live in a dense urban area, right? But we would lead with different messages for different people based on, you know, what type of person they were and what channel they go on. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Let's take one more. David. Oh. Okay. Yeah.
First off, thank you, Max, for the value you gave to your presentation. My question is around copywriting and how to tell your story of your brand through on Amazon. You gave a list of the opportunities to tell your story with images and et cetera, et cetera. One of them was copywriting. So how would you go around that, telling your story through those bullets that you get with Amazon? Would you tell them the benefits and how your product makes your customers feel, or what do you think?
So the reason why I put copy lower in that list, and if you actually go back, you can see I think I have it listed second to last, is because like a lot of Amazon copywriting is less impactful than copywriting in other places, right? Because you have to kind of write to competitors. You have to kind of figure out like, okay, what are the things that people really care about, and how can you just like kind of check the box and say that you can address that concern, right? Because again, Amazon has done a really good job of just kind of reducing it to like, okay, stack all these products up next to each other. How do they compare? Like, what's on price? How many reviews do they have? All that kind of stuff. That being said, there is a limited opportunity in Amazon itself, right, to infuse some personality into your copy, right? And so part of that, the easiest way to do that is to think about writing your copy as if you are writing directly to your ideal customer, like as if you're writing a letter to them, right? I always think about who's the person on the other side of this that's reading my writing, right? And how would I write to that person to engender kind of the strongest response? So that's the first thing. The second thing is you probably have one of those bullets, either the first one or the last one, where you have an opportunity to kind of break out of whatever the kind of the standard set of bullets that you need to write for your category to tell a little bit of a story, right? And it's like 150 word story. It's short, right? Whatever the limit is for that bullet. But, that's where you can talk about kind of the passion that you have behind, or what I really try to do is show, hey, I understand who you are, right? If I'm, back to that example that I just gave with the grocery company, right? If I am like writing for that feed the family person, that first bullet is all about like, we understand how hard it is, to get food on the table on a weeknight and get food that kids are going to want to eat, right? That is why we started this business. That is why we, developed this product, whatever. Really kind of meet them where they are and show that you understand, and then hit like, okay, and here's the thing that you need to see for my meal kit, my meal planning kit, and then here's the next thing you need to see, and here's the next thing you need to see, and we have 100% satisfaction guarantee with free shipping. Boom, hit us up if you have any questions, right? But you're going to do that through kind of the personality that comes through in the writing, and then you probably have one bullet where you get to kind of like tell the story of your brand. That's why I emphasize packaging, images, inserts, things like that, because that's really where you have more freedom to do that. And obviously copy becomes like hugely important on the packaging, in the supporting images, the stuff in your insert and the copy that you use in your emails or your ManyChat sequence or whatever, like that's all very important. But the actual copy on the listing, a little bit hamstrung there, a little bit, handcuffed. So
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, another round of applause for Max, please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys.
Much
Yeah, no
appreciate it. Much
Thanks for
appreciate
bringing me in. If you guys have any other questions, you can always just email me, max@brandbuilderstrategy.com.
Max@brandbuilderstrategy.com. Cool, Max. Well, I won't take up too much of your time anymore. Thank you so much for your time again this Saturday afternoon. And
No problem.
soon.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.